Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 7 Things Your Spreadsheet Can't Do to Help You Manage Your Fixed Assets. Today's presenter is Geni Whitehouse. She is a certified public accountant who divides her time between working as a winery consultant in the Napa Valley area and writing, speaking, and tweeting about what some might consider nerdy subjects. She has been named a top 100 influencer by Accounting Today, one of 25 thought leaders in accounting, and one of the 25 most powerful women in accounting by CPA Practice Advisor. She's the author of How to Make a Boring Subject Interesting, 52 Ways Even a Nerd Can Be Heard on Amazon.com, and co-founder of Solve Services, which provides remote bookkeeping services to companies in the wine industry. In today's presentation, we'll walk through some areas where spreadsheets might be holding you back and what you can do to better help manage your fixed assets. After the presentation, we'll have a short Q&A, so please submit your questions either in the chat box or the Q&A box. Geni, you can go ahead and take it over from here. Are you there, Geni?
Hello, this is Geni. How's the sound?
There
Can you hear me
go.
now?
Oh, yes.
All right. I was talking to myself. That's always fun. This is Geni Whitehouse. I'm coming to you from the beautiful Napa Valley, which is gorgeous at all times of year. I am particularly appreciative of my residents because I'm from Greenville, South Carolina originally, and so every day I feel like I'm on vacation. I'm also afraid at some point that they're going to find out I have snuck in and they're going to kick me out and send me home. So today we're here to talk about the limitations of spreadsheets, at least when it comes to managing your fixed assets. We are a Sage fixed asset user, our firm. We use the tool internally, and we are grateful every day that we don't have to do all this stuff on our own, that we have the support of a team like the Sage fixed asset team and a big group of experts. We like to think of them as our own little elves at this time of year. So we all know that if we have a tool that we like and that we know and that we've invested a lot of time and energy in, we are tempted to use that tool for everything we do. This is one of my favorite quotes from Maslow, the guy who invented the hierarchy of needs. And you know, it's tempting that if the only tool you have is a hammer, then you're going to treat everything that you encounter in your life and in your work job and in your work day as a nail and try to hammer it. And so that's what we do, I think, with Excel. There have been lots of studies about spreadsheet inaccuracies, including some major financial problems that occurred because somebody relied on a bad spreadsheet. It's kind of like the internet. We think that if it's in a spreadsheet, it's right. Just like stuff that's published on the internet, it must be true. And so I think there's a little bit of, we've gotten a little bit lazy with spreadsheets. We've gotten very dependent on them. They're fully distributed throughout our organizations. They're not very well controlled, and there's no security around them. So there's some risk that we're exposing ourselves to. And what we need really is a unique tool for a unique job. And anybody who's ever bought anything from IKEA knows the importance of that. They give you that specialized little tool that you have to put in all those 8 million screws. And if you lose that thing, you're out of luck. So the same is true for the work that we do in the accounting world. If we're keeping track of books, if we're running businesses, we can't use one tool for everything. Clearly, we need a specialized tool for specialized requirements. We don't use CRM applications, customer relationship management tools, to manage our accounting transactions, hopefully. We don't use point-of-sale applications, which are designed for retail, to manage customer sales on account. And we don't use a pitchfork to roast marshmallows. So why would we use an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of fixed assets? So first, I have to admit, and I really have to admit, that I don't want to be a hypocrite here, that I do have a sincere and deep love of all things Excel. I'm a pivot table aficionado. And if I could do everything in Excel, I'm one of those people who might do it. But I do appreciate its limitations. I know when I'm not serving myself best by doing something in spreadsheets. But I want to give you some things, another way to look at the jobs that you do and the tasks that you're trying to accomplish, and show you how you might be able to do some things that are pretty cool in spreadsheets, but there are limitations. So number one, you can always use a spreadsheet to keep track of your holiday gift giving. I do that myself. Here's my recent list. I've listed my relatives. I've listed their favorites because I've got to have an idea of the kinds of stuff that they're interested in. And I've used some great features of Excel. I've used this icon conditional formatting tool to basically give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down for the last time I saw that particular family member And then, of course, I've coded those people by naughty or nice using, again, conditional formatting, and all of that leading me to come up with some gift ideas. And again, my family is Southern, so I've come up with some things. I think Aunt Peg, who's an Old Yeller fan, is going to be getting that taxidermy dog she's always wanted for Christmas. And you can see that it is an effective way to just make a list. But that spreadsheet of yours isn't going to help you decide if you should replace your sleigh this year or next year. And it's also, in the case of a sleigh or an expensive automobile, not going to automatically consider the luxury auto limitations for you. For that, you need something like Sage Fixed Assets, which has years of experience in this particular area and tools that are specially designed to make sure that you don't screw up on your tax deductions or do something wrong that's going to cause you to not get the maximum benefit for some of those deductions that you're entitled to take. So when you put an asset in Sage Fixed Assets, and this is the, so again, we're in the wine industry, so for all of our training in our CPA firm, the teaching that we do to clients and prospects, we use this sample fake winery. It's called Le Coup Rouge Winery, which means redneck in French. So it has its own website, and we use all of it for teaching people about accounting concepts. And I've loaded up my an asset in this winery, and you'll notice it's a 1969 Dodge Charger, which, of course, you all know is the car used in the Dukes of Hazzard. And so I've loaded that in. It's an expensive car because it's, you know, famous. And it tells me in Sage Fixed Assets that the luxury auto limitations have automatically been applied. This is the kind of report that you can see, and it also tells you at what point it switches the depreciation calculations, and all of that stuff that you can't possibly keep track of in that spreadsheet of yours. So keep the spreadsheet for your holiday shopping list, and let Sage Fixed Assets manage this stuff like this. It's important to you, it's important to your business, it's important to also, in Fixed Assets, keep track of the image of that particular asset in case you get confused about which one it is. So you can store your photos and images inside the application as well. So if you got people that don't know what a particular item is, they're able to go into the application and actually view an image of that particular asset. You can always use a spreadsheet to create a seasonal image. And I remember back in the programming days, back in the COBOL and Fortran and the real nerdy mainframe stuff that I actually am old enough to have done, one of the programming jobs we always got was to design a picture inside the software. We had to create code that would have the mainframe computer draw a seasonal image, and you can do that stuff in Excel. I mean, you know, I'm an artist. Nobody can say that I'm not. I've created my own candy cane using Excel. So, yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff in Excel. You can entertain yourself and never do any real work if you want to. But when it comes to fixed assets, you can't use that spreadsheet to help you figure out when the mid-quarter convention is going to apply for any asset purchases that you make. So don't be Scrooged by that shopping spree that you go on in October, November, and December of your calendar year, because the rules are going to apply to you, and if you're not watching it, you're going to not get the full benefit of some of those depreciation deductions that you're counting on. Like the Grinch, the IRS is going to come steal some of those tax deductions. So turn to Sage Fixed Assets to manage that stuff for you. You can run this report, again, in my winery, and we bought a bunch of stuff early in the year, and so it applies the test, and it gives me this comforting message here that your acquisitions in the last 3 months do not exceed 40%, and so those mid-quarter conventions will not apply. So again, think about that. These are built-in reports. This is backed by this knowledge. It's, you know, it's not only the technical calculation engine that's so valuable in Sage Fixed Assets. It's this team of people behind the scenes that get this stuff. They're focused on understanding the law changes, understanding what the depreciation rules mean, helping you find ways to better manage all those assets that you have, helping you optimize the tax deductions. So it's that brain power behind the scenes that is irreplaceable in our own world. We can't just spend all of our days trying to get up to speed on some of these laws or even keeping up with the changes. Last year, for example, we were in such a quandary as CPAs trying to figure out what the heck was going to happen because we didn't get the laws passed until the very last minute. Sage was on top of it. We actually I did a presentation with them about the implications of the PATH Act. So there was a free webinar, and we shared all of the implications of that law change. Your spreadsheet isn't going to pop up with that kind of data while you're working on it. It's going to be pretty, and you can do all those cool highlights and filters and pivot yourself till you're silly, but you're not going to have all the information that you need to do your job effectively and to keep track of those assets that are running the revenue engine inside your business. Sure, you can use a spreadsheet to list all the useful lives of your winery assets. Again, we're in wine country, so I got to talk about wine and not the wine with the H, the kind you drink. We have special funky weirdo assets that we use in wine country. And so one of the best marketing tools that we use at our firm, and it's Broke Merkle Davis and Company, is just providing our clients a list of all the weird assets and the useful lives that apply to those assets so that when they set them up in their own books or when we set them up for them, we have a consistent depreciation method. So yeah, Excel's a great way to do that. But look at all those different columns that I had to communicate in terms of lives and methods, et cetera. And I had to keep track of it there. This isn't doing anything to calculate the depreciation expense. So for that, I need a tool that's going to help me automate that process. It's going to take the information, going to know intelligently when I add an asset to the system what the related depreciation calculations need to be. I need one button to push. In Excel, yeah, you can spend years and years of maybe automating some of these steps, making some assumptions, and writing some pretty long if-then-else statements. Type that sucker into your Excel spreadsheet and go to town. But why would you? When you can turn to a company like Sage, a well-known company, a global company that's known for their expertise, that's been producing this fixed asset solution for a long time, and that has the team of people, again, who are watching the world of assets for you and keeping you out of the tax code, which is always a good thing. So in Sage Fixed Assets, when you add an asset, you indicate the property type. So you indicate the tax information first, and then once you've populated that, it will auto-fill in, based on the information you've loaded, all of those other depreciation methods. So you've entered once, and you populate across. So you can see that my Le Coeur Rouge Redneck Winery outhouse has its own wide mouth bass decoration on the wall, which is gold-plated, so it's a little bit more expensive than what you might expect. And so when I load that in as an accessory and I give it the appropriate, hopefully useful life, it'll then determine what my alternative minimum tax calculations are going to be, what my book method is going to be, and all that stuff with a single click of that button. And nobody wants to depreciate their wide mouth bass over the wrong period of time. So click that tax data and let Sage Fixed Assets do the work for you. You can always use a spreadsheet. This is one of the best features of Excel spreadsheets, is this ability to filter data. Yeah, you can do that. And you can even store views. So you can hide stuff, you can group data, you can summarize, you can do lots of stuff, but it's a very limited, linear, single-dimensional view of data that you have in a spreadsheet tool. That's the difference between a spreadsheet application and a database engine. A database has a multi-dimensional view of data, has multiple connections across a single piece of data. That's why Sage Fixed Assets is able to populate all of those methods, because it can get intelligence and make relationships between independent fields of data. And that's the true power of an application like this. So yeah, we can use a spreadsheet to filter data. And this is one of the things that we provide to winery clients in Napa. They have, in our industry, there are a bunch of different tools that people are using. So there's a retail business, if you think about a winery, if you've ever been to Napa. They have a tasting room, which is basically a retail store. They're selling wine. They're letting you pony up to the bar and sample their wares. And so that's a very different business from their wholesale sales to restaurants and brokers across the country. So they have different tools and different methods, and so we're providing them a best practice spreadsheet. They can filter the spreadsheet on the sales channel. You see in this column, I have a channel option here, and I can filter that, and then they can select, if they're looking at their retail business, what are the questions they should be asking inside their business, and what are some best practices for that particular application. You wouldn't believe how difficult the technology challenges are in this space, because they're different, unique applications for different aspects of the business. So yeah, Excel works great for that stuff, and I do way more writing in Excel than I think I should. I probably should use Word, but I love the filtering. I love the sorting and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I get it. Excel's fun, and it's pretty. I can do all this kind of cool color coding. I can create these little triangles on my spreadsheet. I can print it out and make it look nice. But again, I can create a list, and I can do some stuff with a basic row and column format, but I can't click the next slide because I got annotations in effect. Hang on here. Now I can click the next slide. There we go. But you can't create a reusable template that helps you quickly add a new asset. So you saw my list of weirdo assets that we have in wine industry, things like trellises that are depreciable. Lots of components of that farming vineyard environment are separately depreciable, and they have interesting, useful lives. And so I want to be able to set up for my team. So we have about 20 employees that work here in the Napa Valley, and all we do is wineries. So we want to be able to add a new employee to our team, have them pick from a list of templates that we've already created and add those assets that occur over and over again, like barrels. Barrels are something that we depreciate in this space. So I don't want a new employee or anybody to have to figure out each time what applies in general for a barrel that I'm depreciating. So I can create a template for that. I can create the standards for the methods and the categorization of that asset across all of those classes, and then somebody can just select that template and populate it automatically. You can't do that in Excel. You can't build in that kind of intelligence. Sage Fixed Assets depreciation has over 300,000 IRS tax and GAAP rules. That just blows my mind that there are even that many tax and GAAP rules. And they support more than 50 different methods of depreciation. Put that in your spreadsheet. How about it? You can't do it. You just can't get there. You can if you hire a team of 4,000 people on your own and create your own custom software on your in your office, but that's just insanity. So, there's a lot of effort that goes into this. So here's a reusable template. So you'll notice that inside Sage Fixed Asset, there's a little button that you can click on the right side of the screen that allows you to choose a template. So I created one for my wide-mouth bass there and created a category of wall accessories. So any other redneck wineries that are putting that on their wall, I've already got that template created for them. So I can select that, and then it'll populate those components of that asset that I want to have repeatable. And then I can modify, of course, the acquisition value or dates or some of the components that are not standardizable. But it really speeds up the process and also ensures standardization across my organization. That's one of the big problems with spreadsheets, is that people can go rogue with the information that they put on those spreadsheets. They can just take the spreadsheet, take it off campus, or they can come up with their own methodologies and not be forced to sort of reconcile that back to your general ledger system. So this gives you a controlled environment, a workable environment, and a fast ability to get up to speed on what you need to load, store, track, and monitor. And it's not just depreciation that you can do in Sage Fixed Assets. There are tracking and planning tools that are huge. In addition, Sage has done a great job of providing all sorts of help. They have Sage University that provides training classes in lots of different areas. Their help, if you click that help button inside the screen, it takes you to a bunch of resources that you can download right within the application. They've given you all these reports and tools that help you project forward so you can make sure that the decisions you're making are going to end up the correct way. So again, all of that stuff around just the tracking and the listing of assets are the things you can expect to find inside Sage Fixed Assets. And yeah, we can use our spreadsheets, if we're doing them right, to build in a bunch of check totals into our worksheet. So yeah, we better have those going on. And it's one of those things that really annoys me when I have the spreadsheet from somebody. That they just do, they do adding across, and footing down, and they have, the totals on the bottom of the row and the totals in the column, but they haven't done a check total to see if they foot across and down. That's one of those nerdy CPA things that's you learn in the first year when you're working 90 hours a week and getting paid nothing. I started with Deloitte in the large town of Hickory, North Carolina. I'm sure you've all been there. And I worked in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and footing across and down and putting in a check total, even though we were doing it on paper back then. Yes, I'm that old. Carried forward into whatever spreadsheet application you chose. It was VisiCalc, and then it was Lotus 123, and then it was Quattro Pro, and then it was eventually Excel. And if you don't put those check totals in and build in if statements to check for out of balances and all of those things, you're not even optimizing your spreadsheet. But even with that, and this is a spreadsheet that comes from a product called Validus, which is a data extraction tool for auditors. It will actually tap in and connect to your Sage application. So if you're in public accounting and you've got clients on Sage products and you want to suck their data into Excel and perform an audit, they have integration connectors that will tap into that client data, bring it onto the cloud, and with a button will create all of your spreadsheet lead sheets for audit work. So they're building connectors across all of the Sage products. And so this is a tool, but what it produces for you is, of course, a spreadsheet that already has those check totals built in for you. And that's the way we accountants want to see our spreadsheets. But even with that fabulous and wonderful check total, all that tells me is the stuff I've added up is right, that the math is right. It doesn't tell me that the assumptions I've made are right or that I'm doing anything else correctly. And for that, you need a solution, particularly in the asset world, that acts as your own audit advisor. So there's a tool that you can run inside Sage Fixed Assets that will run through and check to see that you've done things properly with regard to your fixed assets. So this is huge. I mean, this is like having your own little person standing on your shoulder watching you. It's like having a senior staff member writing you a list of review notes right while you're doing the work inside Sage Fixed Assets. So what kind of stuff does it check for? Well, there's a huge list, and I'm sorry for the tiny print, but I just wanted you to see the volume of stuff that it's going through and checking automatically for you. This is one of the things that Sage, the organization, has done consistently throughout their products. It's one of the things that they did in what used to be called Peachtree, which is now Sage 50. They built in some audit checks that would go through and look for things that might indicate a problem. And the fixed asset team has done a great job of looking for transfers within the current year. They're looking to check that your modified accelerated depreciation is correct, that your methods are right, that you're using makers instead of whatever other method might be applicable. They're looking at your light trucks and vans to see if you've applied the correct limitations for deductions. They're looking, of course, at the Section $179 limitation, which, of course, was one of those things that changed at the last minute at the end of the year last year, and, of course, was implemented retroactively, which made it really fun for all of us trying to do tax planning. We didn't know, I think it was like the middle of December when they finally came out with the decision that, yes, we were going to extend the limit on the Section 179 deduction. And then not to mention what happened last year with all the repair regulations. Again, one of those things that Sage is on for you. They're paying attention to what's happening in the world of fixed assets and providing free training and information for people about what they need to do in order to stay compliant. They also provide more in-depth training that is available for a fee on Sage University. So this audit tool is going to check for leasehold improvements. It's going to check for any elections that you needed to make. Again, those repair regs are some elections we had to worry about back in the day. And then they want to make sure that the beginning information is consistent based on the dates. You're looking at qualified retail improvement property, which is, again, one of those law changes that they implemented, that they actually approved last year, but is not taking effect until future periods. So you see all of this stuff here, and they're watching that for you, so you don't have to build in all of that monitoring yourself. You don't have to worry about missing something. And again, this is just this is just part of the stuff they're watching. These are what's going through that audit tool, but at the same time, they're watching anything else that's going on in the environment that might have an impact on your fixed assets or your business results. Number 6, yeah, we can do cool stuff with Excel, like print up and print to the side. We can do portrait or landscape printing of reports. Those are our options. We can add footers and headers and do all kinds of fun, pretty stuff with our reporting. One of the great features they've added in 2016 Excel is this little doohickey here on the right, those little squares. That's what they call a tree map chart. Sounds like something that originated in California, because you all know that we're all tree huggers out here. So that would be a tree map chart. They've also delivered something in Excel called a sunburst chart, which is a bunch of pretty circles. And my favorite, which is called the box and whisker. So if you haven't tried a box and whisker chart, run back to your Excel, upgrade to 2016, and do that. But leave the fixed assets to Sage Fixed Assets. Don't try to fit your assets in a box and a whisker graph or chart. So yeah, we can do that. We can make it right or left or justify how we want and even scale it down in Excel. But you can't easily generate more than 30 customizable and shareable reports. For that, you got to turn to Sage Fixed Assets. And Sage, and keep in mind, you know, we thought that people had, we used to think back in the day that, everybody still hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Something just flipped out there. Okay, so Sage has, we used to think that if you had 2 sets of books, you were doing something illegal. Well, you know, that's not true. We know we have at least 3 sets of books. Every company has their book, their tax book, their federal tax book, and their state tax book. But you also got to worry about your ACE book, your AMT book, your multi-state books potentially, and then any sort of customized books that you need. Also, some additional books might be needed for some of the gap reporting and projecting that you have to do. So Sage can handle 7 different books. They're all visible on that one screen, so you can see the implications across those different environments that you have to consider for depreciation methods. You can manage your entire life cycle inside Sage Fixed Assets, acquisition, retirement, even work in process, construction management pieces. Here you've got a place to store it, to keep track of it, to systematize it, and make sure that anybody in your organization can get to those assets and make sure that they're looking at the true and accurate information for costing, acquisition dates, and can account for depreciation correctly. So in here, this is just a sample screen of some of the reports that you have. You can see there's a huge list. They've thought of everything. I mean, they've really brought all the reports together. You have a series of options and configuration settings that you can choose to make sure that what you get out of the application is exactly what you need. And that's just one screen. That's one list of reports. Then they have some standards, and you can see there's standards related to depreciation expense, tax expense, summary reports, everything you need if you're auditing fixed assets. It'll give you the standard lead sheet format that you're looking to create. Plus, there's integration to leading applications, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But in addition to that, they will produce tax reports, specially designed for your ITC, if you're still dealing with that, recapture of ITC, investment tax credits, which we used to have a long time ago, your 4562, depreciation and amortization, and then your corporate AMT forms. They will also calculate your 4797 gain and loss information, which is, as we know, a huge nightmare to just keep track of. So lots of reporting capabilities. I don't even want to think about what it would take for you to try to configure any of that reporting using the basic features and functions of Excel. But yeah, you can use Excel to shop for a new car, and I know any of you accountants that are online are already doing this. You've already found this template. This is on a website called healthywealthywiseproject.com, where they've taken all the work out of designing your car shopping spreadsheet away and built it for you. They've even given you some suggestions, some very accountant-friendly suggestions, I might add. Volvo, Acura, and Hondas, which are all solid performers and the kind of car that people in our profession are generally drawn to. So they've given you a heads up here. Of course, you're going to have to update the year for that model, or maybe this is the best price because these are older cars and they're already the depreciation on those cars has already happened. So maybe this is a wise choice. They've given you a couple of your old cars, so you're not paying top dollar. So there's a spreadsheet. Yeah, it works great. You can color code it. You can put some stuff. You can put little boxes. You can format yourself right into something that's really pretty. And this can help you figure out what kind of car you want, right? And keep track of your shopping. And you got all these detailed options, you know, ways to code it. I mean, he's thought through everything here. So you can do that. Go for it. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But how are you going to depreciate? How are you going to handle the depreciation of the auto, consider the luxury auto limitations, and then get rid of that old one? You got to handle the disposition of that old asset, and Sage Fixed Assets will handle all that for you. You can enter the disposition there. You can handle partial dispositions, and then Sage Fixed Assets will give you this nice little worksheet that will help you figure out what you have to worry about, whether you have to figure out gain recapture under Section 1231 rules, if you got 1245 or 1250 property, what you have to do if there was an original investment tax credits taken, you have to recapture some of that. So it's going to think about all of that for you because it's going to have all that historical data about that asset, and then it's going to give you this worksheet that's going to show you the book and tax adjustment, and then it's going to give you everything you need for the 4797 calculation for the tax return. Now, in this case, the asset was disposed of via a casualty loss, and so you'll see that it does not show up on that 4797. But you've got all the data there right at your disposal. It's going to keep the asset on your books, but it's going to show you, it's going to flag it as disposed so that you're not forgetting that that asset was in fact retired in some way. So kinds of things that you're not doing well if you're using a spreadsheet to try to manage your assets. Just one of the many things that you need to consider when it comes to keeping track of those expensive, valuable, and usually very important revenue-generating assets of the business. So we promised you 7 things. We're going to go beyond that because we always over-deliver here at Sage. So one of the things you can do is, in your spreadsheet, is you can record that list of assets all day long in the spreadsheet. You can even build in your pretty little filters there. We all love that option. Data filter, get your list, and pull out what you want and what you don't want. But you can't connect your fixed asset transactions directly with your accounting software. And with Sage, you can do that. You can link your fixed assets in multiple directions. So we can link the depreciation back to the accounting software. We can pull the asset additions from your source documents, from your source transactions inside Sage application. So you can look at purchase orders, accounts payable invoices, and those transactions will be pulled into your Sage fixed assets based on the parameters that you specify. And then we can also take information out of Sage and port it in to tax software. They, at this point, connect to ProSystem FX, which is one of the leading products from CCH, Wolters Kluwer. So, yeah, you can do the spreadsheet stuff, and then you can manually rekey all that stuff back into your tax software, or you can connect it through Sage and have all that stuff automatically flow. Again, better than elves at this time of year, doing all the painful stuff for you behind the scenes. And there's that little set options there inside Sage Fixed Assets to let you send the stuff. So here's some of the depreciation connectors that they have. You see, of course, all the Sage products. They also connect to Microsoft Dynamics SL, which used to be Solomon back in the day. And I'm sure that connecting to additional products is an option, and there are probably ways that you can get data. If they don't have a native integration built, they have other options for you to send data out in formats that can be received by other applications. So importing and exporting, linking data outside of that spreadsheet into other applications is a huge value for anyone that's using this Sage Fixed Asset application. And this is one of my favorites. Again, you go look online for stuff, and it's amazing what people are using spreadsheets to do. But this is a spreadsheet. You can see there's a spreadsheetsports.com site, so it's not just fantasy football. But if you want to track your fantasy football teams, then here you go. We've got that built for you already. Here's a template. You can set up your teams. You can do some fancy color coding. You can build your teams. It's got like 25 tabs of stuff you're supposed to be analyzing. The question I have is, how the heck do these people do anything else other than keep their spreadsheet updated? Which is the same question you might ask yourself if you're tracking fixed assets in a spreadsheet, by the way. How can you do anything else other than keep that spreadsheet updated? So number 9, yeah, you can use your spreadsheet for fantasy football, but you can't use it to generate enough tax savings to pay for your trip to the Super Bowl coming up in February this year. Where is it? It's in, I don't know, that's the count. I think it's in Houston this year. So if you have Sage Fixed Assets at your disposal, you're tracking tax, you're making the optimum deductions that are available to you, and so with those tax savings, you can hop on a plane or a pony or a donkey or a train or whatever you want to do and get to the Super Bowl as soon as you figure out where it is, since I'm not the expert on all things Super Bowl. So there's 9 things that you can't do very well in a spreadsheet, and 9 ways that Sage Fixed Assets is going to help you stay ahead of the game and be a winner like those champions of whoever wins the Super Bowl. So it's not just fixed assets that we're talking about. It's not just depreciation of those assets. There's also a huge pain of keeping track of what you have. And so Sage Fixed Assets has an additional option to track the assets using barcode technology that will bring the assets in and help you keep track of the actual physical location of some of those assets. And again, adding to that tighter control of those assets. And it's amazing how many people do not have a good handle on physical assets inside their organizations. And it also has, the tracking tool also has a check-in and check-out feature that lets you know when an asset has been removed. So think about computers and laptops that are being moved all over your business, and if you had this ability to check things out, keep track of who actually had it, how much better that would be than trying to track all of that inside of a spreadsheet. They also manage, in addition to the templates that I talked about earlier, you can track things by groups, and you can also build smart lists, which are basically your own tables of acceptable choices for different fields. So you can build a smart list that then is associated with the information that you're tracking or working with inside Sage Fixed Assets. In addition, the Sage Fixed Assets has done a bunch of stuff to try to make insights more readily available to you as a person running a company. And you can see that there are dashboards, there are snapshots of information that show up. It brings it to you in a graphical way. These are some of the concerns you might have related to your asset management. You might want to see investment, what things are doing in terms of retirement. Do we have some repairs that might be required because we've got a bunch of old assets? What can we do to keep this going? And then you see some different comparisons across different views. So I know you're accountants, and you're going to ask me now, well, this sounds great, and I don't want to do all the spreadsheet work that I've been doing historically, but what's the ROI on that? Well, Sage has answered that question for you, too. They've given you an ROI calculator There's the link. You could go out there and enter in some basic information about what's going on in your world with fixed assets, and then you can determine what your return on investment is likely to be by switching from whatever you're doing, whatever bad method you're currently doing, and switching to the better way, which is the Sage Fixed Assets application. Use the right tool for the right job, and then see what the benefit can be to you. Just think about it. So one of the things that they talk about here is ghost assets, which are assets that you still have on the books, but you can't find them anywhere. It's a very common problem. A lot of money is tied up in assets still being carried on the books that are not physically identifiable or locatable. So the tools that you have from the Sage Fixed Asset team are going to help you avoid that particular problem and many others as well. They offer right now, they have a free reporting overview class. So I told you there are more than 30 different reports that you can access in Sage Fixed Assets. So right now they're offering a free class that will cover all of those reports, give you some insights and tips about what it is you want to do, what you're looking for on the reports, and how to best use those inside your business. So fixed assets, in my opinion, is a big area of opportunity for accountants inside organizations to show their expertise and to also show that they're managing value in that business. So Sage makes it easy for you to communicate some of the things that are happening in relation to those assets. If you still got to have that spreadsheet, we don't want to kill it for you completely, even though we're talking about death to spreadsheets. We know that some of you are still going to want to do something in the spreadsheet because that's where we live and that's what we like, and we've invested all these years in figuring out how to create macros inside Excel, even though we don't need them anymore. So there's an import tool, so you can bring stuff in from your spreadsheet to switch. They've got a wizard that walks you right through the process. You basically map the fields, and it plops it right in to Sage Fixed Assets, and you're ready to go. Of course, you're going to have answer some questions, fill in some critical fields so it knows how to depreciate that information. There are templates available, so customers can go download a sample template for how to set up the import for that data that you're using, and then it'll make the process easy, and you can walk right through it. So you can take that flat, one-dimensional spreadsheet, port it into Sage Fixed Assets, and get up and going very quickly. On the flip side, you can take information once you have it in Sage Fixed Assets and use a similar kind of a wizard to export whatever fields of information you need. You can define it with this field map that you see going on right here and tell it what data you want to export into that Excel spreadsheet, because we know you want to put in those conditional formatting and make things pretty, especially now at this time of year. You're going to have a lot of red and green going on, or maybe blue and white, depending on your seasonal preference, or maybe some other colors. Whatever represents the holidays for you, you can use those conditional formatting tools to create those in Excel, and you know, who doesn't want to spend their days doing that stuff? It's the only chance at creativity we get as accountants. Conditional formatting. All right, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. I also wanted to mention that the export capabilities apply to, you can export to Excel, Word, Adobe Acrobat, WordPerfect. I can't believe anybody's still on WordPerfect. You can do ASCII files, crystal reports, HTML, XML, and a lot of additional data file options on the export. So, questions?
Thanks, Jenny. We're going to get ready to, we have a couple questions that came through, but I just wanted to quickly cover a couple quick housekeeping things first. So as people are exiting the survey, a survey will, as they're exiting the webinar, a survey will pop up. If you could just take a quick moment, it's just a few quick questions just to let us know how you enjoyed the webinar, what you liked, what we can improve upon. We'd really appreciate it, just to help us as we're creating webinars in the future. And then the other thing we wanted to let you know, Jenny's covered some great, insight into what the solution does. Tomorrow is our last webinar in the series, and in that session we'll be doing a much deeper dive into fixed asset solutions with one of our sales engineers here, and so you'll be able to see the product work, you'll be able to get lots of questions answered, and get some real, life experience. You'll be able to see the system actually working. So if you're not yet registered for that, please go visit us at sagefixedassets.com to register, and we'd love to see you tomorrow there. But with that, we can jump into some questions. Also, if anybody else has any other questions, please submit them either in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'll make sure to get those over. So the first one that came through is, can the system help with property tax filings?
Absolutely. We use Sage Fixed Assets for all of our property tax reporting. It'll give you the list, it'll fill in, and you can set up the tracking information that you need to get the property tax returns done correctly. Yeah, it's a big benefit. Thank you for asking that. It's a big additional benefit as well.
Great. Another one that came in is, how hard is it to get started from spreadsheets?
It's not that difficult. Sage has really taken that into account, so they've given you, as I showed you, the import options. They've given you the template capabilities, and they've made it really simple to take an asset and copy it. So if you have a bunch of, in my case, barrels, you can create the first one, you can fill in all the components, you can copy that barrel multiple times, and then you can modify the different individual components. So they've given you a lot of tools to make it easy to switch from whatever you're doing today to what you should be doing, which is automating it in Sage Fixed Assets.
Great. Another one we have here is, what law changes do we need to know about?
So most of the law changes were enacted last year. The PATH Act impact was huge for most of us. They've increased the limitations on Section 179. They've modified what was going to be a very burdensome repair regulation compliance component. One of the biggest things that you need to make sure that you're in compliance with is the de minimis rule for asset capitalization. Most of us, at least from my experience, had by default an asset capitalization policy of $500. We all, if it was over $500, it became a fixed asset, a depreciable asset in the business. Well, the de minimis rules under the tangible regs that were confirmed and extended at the end of 2015 defined a safe harbor for capitalization under $2,500. So $2,500 is now what you should be using in your books and records and your standard procedures as a capitalization policy. Now, clearly, it needs to be consistent with the rest of the environment that you're operating in. So if you're a very small business, $2,500 might be too big a capitalization limit relative to everything that you're expending in that business. But really take a look at those capitalization policies again. This is a time to do it, to make sure that you have a documented policy that you're complying with and that you have considered whether you might expand that capitalization policy limit based on the changes in the law. Make sure that you review any changes in your state rules. Again, some of these federal law changes that came in last year, some of the states have conformed and some have not. You need to be clear on what that is. And again, you can look to the Sage team because they've got some information on their website that will help you understand some of the state components. They'll give you links to go to the state sites to find out what implications are in effect for your particular state. So, you know, this law change stuff is always changing. And the bonus depreciation rules are changing after 2017. So for this year, we're still under the 50% bonus depreciation rule. Again, the fixed asset application will help you stay compliant on that as well. So those are the big things that we need to stay informed about right now. What else you got for me?
Great. Looks like the last one we have, unless anybody wants to submit anything else, is just asking if you have any tips on making the transition from spreadsheets to a system.
I think the key is to, first of all, look at the physical assets. It's a great time to just go through and inventory those. And again, using the tracking tool and barcoding, it's a great time to switch over. Really, spreadsheets, I know you got a spreadsheet with lists. Put the list in there, fill out what you know about the list, keep track of your current accumulated depreciation, and then start from there. The Sage does offer a professional services team, so if you need some specific help from these folks to get your assets in and you don't have time at this time of year to spend on a new project, I would check with them and see what services they provide to help make that easier as well. But it's really about taking your list, updating the physical inventory of assets to match what you have records of, and I'd even try to find the invoices. And Sage can store those invoice documents as well. So it's a great time to sort of go electronic with your invoice purchasing information, to pull in asset images into Sage Fixed Assets, and then to pull in all the accumulated depreciation, and then to verify and check those methods that you may have been using in error in prior periods. So one of the things people find is they might get a boost from under-depreciated assets when they switch into this tool, that they suddenly see that they've gotten some additional tax benefit by virtue of the conversion to the application.
Great. We have one other question that just came in.
Okay.
We're a nonprofit with a high depreciation threshold. Can we track items that we wouldn't be depreciated because they are below our depreciation threshold?
Sure. You can track stuff and just set it up for no depreciation. I mean, land is an asset that we're tracking that's not depreciable, right? So Sage Fixed Assets, you want to put land in there even though it's a non-depreciable asset. So yeah, record it in there if you want a central property location. And then if you want to use the tracking features to barcode, et cetera, yeah, you can do that. But I guess that's a little interesting as to if you've determined that they're not worthy of capitalization, then you basically said these are consumable items that you don't really want to have to fool with for tracking purposes. So I'd make sure you're clear on what you're trying to accomplish. But absolutely, you can put assets in here and not choose to depreciate them.
Okay. I think that's it for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to attend tomorrow's webinar, there's still time to register. Just visit sagefixedassets.com, and you can also find more information on the products and solutions that we offer there as well. But again, please fill out the survey as you exit. And Jenny, if there's anything else you want to share before we end.
You can follow me on Even a Nerd, on Twitter at Even a Nerd. You can email me at genie@evenanerd.com. If you have any questions, I look forward to answering those if I can help you. If there's anything that I showed you today that you'd like to learn more about, or just questions in general, reach out to me. I highly encourage you to join the Real Product Experts tomorrow for an in-depth look at how the application works. There's so much power embedded in that application, and I've just given you really a taste of that, an appetizer, if you will, for what you're going to see tomorrow. So please join the amazing, intelligent folks there for even more fun and entertaining stuff that you can do with fixed assets. Thank you, Sage, for the opportunity to be here on your behalf.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for attending.
All right, take care.